For the newly indoctrinated, Jim Butcher's The Dresden Files follows the story of a professional wizard in Chicago. We've started our podcast as a way to help break down the series' most important moments, characters, and lore. This is McAnally's Dresden Files Pubcast by Free Flow Rambling. Conjure by it at your own risk.
Welcome to the McAnally's Pubcast, brought to you by Free Flow Rambling. This is episode 5.6, On the Lam. My name is Tansenn, and I am joined by Jess.
Hello.
Maggie is still away for work, so we've got two guests joining us today in her place. Reoccurring guest Amber.
Hello.
And introducing Michael.
Hey.
You can find Michael at Viker Studios on Instagram through our Insta post, including him on our website blog post detailing how to make a Canon Blue Beetle.
Michael would also like it to be known that he is wearing an outfit in specific homage to the Blue Beetle.
Are you going to post a picture of it? I kind of want them to draw fan art of what they think I'm wearing. I put a lot of effort into these hubcaps.
Yeah, he came in wearing a full car bodysuit.
All right, so typically we go through and find out how you got introduced to the Dresden Files and what's your overall thoughts.
Okay, so I got introduced to it by Jessica, and when I was going to go to Europe for my study abroad, she said, "Oh, I have this book series that I know you're going to enjoy." So she sent me all the ebooks of everything, and I didn't listen to a single one. And then when I got home, and then quarantine hit, she gave me a giant box of books of the complete series. And I said, okay, I need to catch up on this, because it's clearly important to her, and I'm probably going to be busy, because we're all going to be back to work after this 2-week quarantine or whatever. So I quickly went through the entire series in like 3-4 months.
Oh, wow.
So it's quite the binge.
That's a heavy binge.
I know that she likes Harry Potter, and I don't know Harry Potter, but I'm conversational in it. So I thought, I'll just be conversational in Dresden Files too, never thinking that I would be on a podcast having to talk about it in depth.
Hope you're paying attention.
Yeah.
Well, welcome.
Thank you.
This is how they hook you.
Oh, yes.
They did it to me too. Like, here, just read this.
So yeah, so I've read it all a year ago, and I've now forgotten most of it. So Jessica said, "Hey, on Sunday, we need you to host, and it's currently Friday. Here's the book. Let's go." So
No pressure at all.
We plan ahead well.
I'm also dyslexic, so sometimes when I read things, it comes out a different way. I don't know why, but when I first read the description of Morgan, I thought he was a giant bird person.
Oh.
So every time Morgan comes on, in my head, I imagine Sam the Eagle. And so I know that's wrong, but like as Morgan becomes more and more central person, I'm just imagining all this is happening, and then someone is there with a Sam the Eagle puppet, just hounding
I want to live in your world.
With a big giant sword.
Yeah, so
Awesome.
and because this is fantasy, sometimes I'll read something and be like, this doesn't make any sense, but it's fantasy. I guess that's the way it is. Then I'll reread it and be like, oh, I just misread that word.
That's awesome.
We're unstoppable and Sam the Eagle.
Yeah. Right? Coming soon.
We would now like to send a special shout out and thank you to Dave G for buying us a pint on Patreon. By supporting us at this level, Dave G now has exclusive access to episode outtakes, our special Discord community, and even an official McAnally's Pubcast sticker. A huge thank you to Dave G for his support. If you'd also like to grab us a pitcher, pint, or sampler to get loads of fun perks and exclusive merchandise, check out our Patreon channel today. Chapter 12. Dresden shows up to 888 Ralston, where the crime scene is underway. Kim Delaney has been found murdered next to the circle she has asked Dresden about. Murphy suspects Dresden to be involved in the murders and arrests him.
So, coming right off of that summary, to the start of the chapter, Harry says as he pulls up to the house that the blue lights feel like coming home to him.
Yep.
It's very homely and comforting to him because he's just so involved in this police world and working alongside them and being on their team. So I really liked how it was like right off the bat, he's like, "Aw, I love seeing the lights."
It's interesting that he likes it, but it's also he subverts it too, because he says it feels like in an unsettling way a homecoming. So this is my team, but it's not the team I really want to be in.
Where has my life gone?
Yeah.
Right.
So right off the bat, as well as he's pulling up to the house, he gets the chills and feels like he's being watched again. And so there's a few suspects out there right now. We've already had him being watched beforehand by that woman he found in the warehouse. We know that there's Lobo killers, there's Hexen wolves, there's werewolves, there's the alphas. We've got quite a few contenders for out in the woods at the moment. But I think it's safe to say that we've at least got one werewolf variety on the scene.
Right. Could be any number of the...
Any number.
So I had a
Howlers.
question around that. Loup-garou, is that the same as, like, I mean, these names are being used interchangeably throughout the book. So, like, you've got the Loup-garou, you've got reference to werewolves, you got reference to, like, are these all separate characters, or are these just different names for the same sort of...
They're different types.
So they're different types of werewolves, yeah.
Okay.
So essentially it's Jim Butcher bringing in all different werewolf lore and coming up with a reason for it to all exist in the same world. So the Loup-garou is following both Irish and Greek myths of someone having been a family bloodline being cursed with the werewolf trait. The werewolves are people who have learned how to turn into wolves. The Hexen wolves are people who are using an object that transforms them when they're wearing the object. And the last one is the transmogrification,
word.
where
Like shapeshifters.
somebody else turns you into a werewolf.
Which is the one that they attributed the Beast of Gévaudan to? Was that a Loup-garou?
I believe it was.
All right.
If I can recall the earlier text, I believe that's who it
Okay,
was.
because that was the one little tidbit in Dresden Files. Like, oh, I actually know what that is. I'm now interested in the story.
And it's gone. Oh, Terminator. Okay, and we're gone.
Yeah, basically.
So Carmichael meets Dresden at the scene, and Dresden asks him if he still thinks he's a fake. Carmichael is still a non-believer, but
And yet friendlier than we've ever seen him.
yeah.
He says that he wishes Dresden wasn't fake, which is an interesting thing to say.
Yeah, and I had it in my notes because I can't recall anymore if Carmichael's family is particularly religious. He comes up a little bit later on in later books, but I can't remember if they are or not. And I wondered if something about the Catholicism was all about, well, we don't believe in magic and all of this, which obviously as we meet Murphy's and Michael's faith later on, that kind of is a dichotomy to that.
Yeah.
But I was wondering where his, if it is just that, like, human, like, oh, I don't want to be tricked, so I'm not going to believe in it.
I think more of a theme of these chapters that I read is the people, like, want to believe whatever makes them feel safe. And what we see in these, like, upcoming chapters is that for people, that can flip a lot, too, on the spot. So you don't necessarily have, like, I know that this will make me feel safe. It's like, as I'm confronted with a new situation, my previous mindset didn't accommodate for this at all. And if someone's offering something that makes me feel safe, then I'll take it. So if Carmichael's thinking, well, I don't necessarily believe that what you're doing is true or, like, upstanding or whatever, but what I believed in before isn't working for me right now. And so it's like, you're the next best thing that I have, so let's give it a shot.
I think that's totally fair. And I think it also is proven by, the first two interactions we've had with Carmichael before this. We had him in the Stormfront being totally, fuck you, Dresden, you're fake. And then we even had him in Welcome to the Jungle graphic novel, where, again, he was just, like, throwing jabs at him at every chance. Versus to this, where he's being way more open and, like, extending an olive branch, really.
Which is interesting, because he really has no reason to after hearing all the rumors that he's involved with Marcone.
With anything, things have gotten worse, right?
Yeah.
And especially with IA and Murphy, like, for anything, he should have been more against him, more rallied against him. So it is nice. As I think Michael just brought up, that clearly his non-believing wasn't working for him, and so it seems like for just the slightest chance, he was willing to just open himself that bit and see, okay, what does Murphy see? Which is a shame, to see how the chapter ends. Almost got him.
Right.
Yeah, it's just like Carmichael's like, please, Dresden, make me feel safe, please. And then Dresden's just like, I don't feel safe. I don't know what to tell you.
Absolutely not.
Don't look at me. I ain't saving you. We're in the same boat.
Yeah.
So then he sees Murphy and gives a detailed description, and he mentions Murph's silver earring. And I don't know if him not discussing the silver part is, like, intentional omission, or he just doesn't pick up on it.
Well, I know you said you didn't read the books earlier, the chapters
Yeah.
earlier. So when he's having a conversation with Bob and learning about all these different werewolf versions, he's very insistent, like, and this one can't do silver, and this one can't do silver, and this one can't do silver. And Bob keeps saying, shut up about the silver, shut up about the silver, until we get to the Loop Guru where he's like, okay, this one can't do silver.
Okay,
So
see, I didn't even see those connections. Now I'm like looking at the text here,
what makes
going
it-
like,
Sorry.
talking about the description, the little beads of silver in her ears. I didn't even get that connection between the silver and the, you know.
You're too focused on Dresden commenting
I
on
think-
her cute ears.
I think I was
gonna
a
say is
little
that most
too-
of the sentence is describing like, oh, she has silver earrings in her earlobes. Man, those are really cute earlobes.
Yeah, I love that writing.
So
she
people-
says sarcastically.
As we all said as we stood around earlier before we started recording, just how annoying Dresden's female view is in these early books. But do you think that was more Jim Butcher's just like go-to way of diverting our expectations? Do you think that he was just legitimately like he just didn't have a better way of concealing Dresden's smarts other than just like a pretty woman
I don't
that he
know.
can't help but comment on?
As a man, if I were in crisis and I saw a woman, my first thought wouldn't be like, damn, those earlobes. That's what's telling me a lot about this person. So just either way you cut
Are
it.
you
it's an
kink
interesting-
shaming Harry Dresden?
I'm just very grateful you're all wearing headphones right now. So just
Can't look at our earlobes. I don't know. I guess, like, you know, as we were saying a little earlier, like, for me, putting sort of a feminist lens to this or looking at it from, like, a woman's perspective, it feels a little bit like lazy male writing, you know? Like, it's easy enough to talk about how her bosoms are heaving, you know? Well, you don't see women writing about men's bosoms heaving or, you know, like, the cute earlobes on some hunky dude. Like, it's sort of a typical way of writing that I feel is lazy. But that said,
yeah.
I don't know. Is it intentional? I haven't read enough of the series to say one way or another. And I don't mean to be like I hate this writing because it's misogynist garbage. That's not what I'm
So-
saying. It's just, it's one-dimensional. And I don't know if that is a Harry issue or if that's a
Butcher issue?
Butcher
I
issue.
feel like it's Butcher writing style coming through Harry's sense of chivalry.
And maybe that's and that's okay. Like, if that is a character choice, that okay, he is a bit misogynist, he's a bit of a d-bag, then fine. Like, there's a certain amount of that. Like, I mean, whether it's intentional or not, I'd say the subconscious exhibition of that is worse than the actual conscious, deliberate. Okay, I'm going to paint him as a misogynist. I'd like to believe the latter.
It's hard to
I don't
say,
know.
too, when you've got so many books. It's like, was this Harry growing as a person or was
Yeah.
this Butcher growing as a person? Because, you know, this is being written right now while Jim Butcher was in college, you know? He was just a 21-year-old or something like that when he got this book out. He might have been just in and of himself a little bit like, oh, well, okay,
Girls.
like, yeah, you know?
Well, in historical
Whereas-
context, like, we're looking at a lot of these movies on Disney Plus or whatever, where they're like actually putting little commentaries saying like, yes, these cartoons or these things were published in an age that was maybe a little different. You know, even 10 years ago, things are different now. There are different ways to describe things and words that we use that may
Well,
not
yeah, I
be
mean,
the
even
same
think of
as
The Office. It viewed so recently, and
Totally.
yet people say it's totally already...
antiquated.
Yeah, exactly, you know?
Yeah.
And this
But-
has had 20 years on it already?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So I was going to say as well that I know Tansenn really fixates on imagery when we read the Dresden Files. She always has a quote or two that, like, just wow, right?
Yeah.
And I don't know if you've ever read the Game of Thrones. I know you have, Michael. But for me, I kind of glaze over those, like, rambling paragraphs
Yep.
of scenery and this and that. For me, I'm just like, who cares? Like, get to the plot. You like... I don't care about how the snow blew over the graves for 6 pages. Like, you know, like for me, I'm just like, let's just go to something interesting.
Feast for crows. Am I right, fellow Game of Throners?
Well, and I think that that's actually really interesting too, because like I know Tansenn and I were having conversations earlier about sort of like my obsession with the Jonathan L. Howard series, the Cabal podcast and the Cabal books. And I think that that's kind of where we have the similarities. For me, Jim Butcher is very focused on the action. Like, it's almost like theatrical in that the action is where all of the energy is. Whereas more in sort of the Cabal series, it's more the descriptors and the scene settings and the character development. So I think that's kind of why I'm feeling like maybe Harry is a little more one-dimensional when I start making those comparisons. But at the same time, Dresden does capture action so much more effectively in so many ways.
He captures his own momentum rather than necessarily describing what's actually happening around him.
Yeah.
Well, it's almost very, very comic book-like.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like it's like, and then this happened.
Pop,
and like,
bang, wow.
and then you saw the viscera.
It lends itself so well to graphic novels.
Yes.
True.
And for myself, who, prefers that action, action. And even like I was especially a big reader as a child. I could go through an entire book in a night. And a big part of that was me just kind of skimming through the parts that I didn't care about. It'd be like, yeah, who cares about this dumb little part? Like, let me get to the thing in the story that I care about. So when people are complaining about, like, he's too focused on a woman, for me, like, I glazed over that. Like, I didn't fixate on any of these descriptions about the woman because I'm like, who cares? That has nothing to do with the plot.
Right.
Which I was wrong about, and we'll get to that later on as to why these descriptors matter so much about the characters in the series. And as much as you want to say, like, he can absolutely describe women better, I agree with that. It doesn't you don't have to recognize a woman by her nipples, strangely enough.
Yeah.
Right.
But I will say that as much as he can use very, the paperback romance, shitty, annoying descriptors over and over again, I will say that at the very least, when he does use a descriptor, it is, I don't want to say very purposeful, because again, sometimes, the shape of her ear maybe doesn't matter, but when it comes up, I will find that he does have good throwbacks to those descriptors.
Yeah, and that was something Tansenn said as well, was that, like, as you progress throughout the books, there's sort of little tidbits from the prior books that sort of sprinkle themselves throughout. And, like, that is something that I definitely admire in writing. It's like, if you can still weave those threads through your future works, then that's fantastic. And even, like I was saying, like, I didn't even notice that he described a silver earring in her earlobe. So is it that he's describing her earlobe because of a sexualization or a lazy way of writing?
Which is one more thing. Is the sexualization a red herring?
Yeah. Or is the whole point of that whole thing about the silver earring, and somehow that means something later on, right? So I'm willing to bite. I'm still here.
So Dresden enters the place and meets with Murphy. They go to the bedroom, and there's no furniture around, and unfortunately a dead Kim Delaney next to a set of chalk circles.
So a small caveat here. Jim Butcher mentioned it once and only once and never brought it up again, because it was later stated that he felt quite guilty about it and didn't want it to be a well-known fact, but Kim Delaney is based off of one of his exes, named after one of his exes.
Oh, nice.
Yes. We've got
Take that, Kim Delaney.
a wee bit of a dismembered, open like a Ziploc baggie. Like, I don't know, like, it must have been a bad breakup. I understand it's a werewolf killing, so you can absolutely get descriptive.
You complete the fish.
But shredding your ex
But
is
shredding
a bit
your
rough.
ex, that's like,
Damn, brah.
he didn't describe. Yeah. He also dated a man named Spike once. So I just wanted to throw that small thing in there. But yeah, so 2 nights ago, one night ago? The night before he was at the warehouse. And that was when he was having dinner. So yeah, so just one night previous, he was having dinner with Kim Delaney talking about making these rituals, which he refused to give much details on.
Yeah.
So she was a friend, but in a way kind of like an apprentice?
She was an apprentice.
Yeah,
She
okay.
had very low-level magic. It was somewhat being coaxed out of her. It's hard to say what it would have become, especially now.
Rough.
I'd love to check back in with her in 10 books, but that won't be happening.
We shredded the ex.
X has been dealt with. So yeah, so this is of someone of a certain degree of magical talent. It came late in life. We discussed this in episode 1 of Full Moon that we did, that who knows what to exact extent, but Harry basically determined that she wasn't powerful enough. She wasn't integrated enough into the magic community to be given the knowledge. Kim decided, well, I think I am, and ultimately was wrong.
Yeah. And Harry's definitely kicking himself because he's realized what is actually happening and sort of regrets his arrogance in that moment.
So yeah, Harry goes into a bit of almost like disassociation for a minute there.
He has quite the trauma response.
And to a point where, like, he says, like, something just clicked and that was it. I was off. And I find, like, yeah, so there's a lot of points when Harry tends to just say, like, I block it out and I do not see and I do not feel. But those always seem to be a lot more with him still present and very much pushing past the pain, purposely not thinking about it, purposely not vomiting and getting sick or anything when he views these horrible scenes, but seeing somebody that he knew who was fairly close to in his life, just so horribly torn up about this, we see for the first time Harry really, like, not handle this well. And I think it's also fair to say that Harry said more in later books that Stormfront, Full Moon, and Grave Peril were his first 3 big cases. This is the first time that he was really dipping his toes into this line of work and actually seeing it up front and being involved. So we know now that, like, other than a few small short stories and the 2 books we're through now, like, he's not this, like, 80-year-old wizard who'd seen everything, you know? Like, this is really his first time, like, oh my god, my friend is ripped and torn up and it's all my fault.
Rough day at the office.
Totally. He says a little bit later, it's not the worst day I've had. It's like, oops, being a wizard.
It's the first time like that we've seen so far that he's all at a loss for words, and that he's like, he wants it to be a prank, and that he wants someone else to start laughing just to let him know it'll be okay.
And he even says, he's like, I want to look Murphy in the eye and have a friend for a minute. And Murphy is totally cut off from him now. And she's almost does a 180. Like, she came to the door, she greeted Dresden, she took him upstairs, and that's it. Now this is Murphy the cop, not Murphy the friend.
Click fury. Mm-hmm. Bam.
So she drags him from the crime scene into the bedroom and shows him a picture of who we find out is MacFinn, who we just learned from Chauncey was some rich millionaire, billionaire, something like that, working on the Northwest Passage to create a preservation of sorts. And his fiancé is the other woman in the picture, who Dresden confirms is the woman that he saw tailing them and at the warehouse. Mm-hmm. And then she leads him to the basement, if I do recall.
Right, and she's right on top of everything. She already has the theory that MacFinn is a loop guru based on that report. And
yeah, Murphy absolutely got to work.
yeah. And Justin does share with Murphy what he learned from the demon, from Chauncey.
Yeah, he gave her the rundown real quick. Northwest Passage, everything he learned there.
Yeah.
But it's too late.
He also mentions that I needed someone to let me unload on them, to keep me from flying apart. So while Murphy's doing all this professional processing, he's just completely out of it.
Yeah,
and I'm just totally surprised by that.
Total disassociation, yeah. He was, like, completely done. And so I think it also helped Murphy get the jump on him when she takes him to the basement, and you can see this destroyed prison. Someone's tampered with what Harry can tell used to be a legitimate confinement for the Loop Guru. And at some point it had been destroyed, clearly didn't work, puts the pieces together that Kim had tried to help him and create a new one upstairs, ultimately failed, was killed by him in the moment, and then Murphy takes out a piece of paper from her pocket that good little cop Murphy that we mentioned in episode 1 was just cleaning up the trash that Dresden had dropped on the floor. Turns out to be Kim Delaney's circle sketches.
Yeah, makes the connection.
So here's my question on that. If there is a connection made, why and how? Like, okay, so I die, I've got a little sketch in my pocket of a process that clearly led to my death. What clicked for...
So real quick, she didn't find the piece of paper on Kim. Kim and Harry were having a conversation at McAnally's Pubcast. That's us! The McAnally's pub. And they were having a conversation. Murphy walks in right as Kim was leaving, and Murphy picks up the trash that was underneath the table that Harry had discarded there after he told Kim to stop looking into this ritual.
Oh.
So he picks up the Murphy
is
picks
that
up
later
the trash.
on? Did I
no,
miss
this is
that?
chapter 1.
Yeah.
Chapter 1.
I'm
Chapter
clearly
1.
not paying attention. I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's all good. So yeah, so
it's a bit of a throwaway piece. Like, if you're not really reading into it,
yeah, this
you
is a
could-
reread.
catch it.
You
This is
could
for
really
reread.
easily miss
Well,
that.
honestly, I'm doing the audiobooks while I'm doing my commutes in the morning, so I don't always catch
How about you
the
stop
details.
paying attention to the traffic signs and listen to the goddamn book?
Right? Yeah, no, it's those details. I'm a big picture
Well,
person.
clearly
so-
Harry was also not paying that much of attention.
Right?
Oh, right, this is what she was doing. I did not think about that.
Well, yeah. So Murphy punches him in the gut. He doubles over. She grabs him, throws him against the wall, and cuffs him, and it's all very quick. And Harry's still just, like, numb to it all.
Oh
Yeah,
yeah,
he
she
doesn't try to
assaults
resist.
him.
Yeah, full-on assaults him.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Like,
not professional cop at all.
Let's talk a little bit about police brutality here, shall we?
And Murphy, so much about the cops doing the right thing for the people. But fuck it, you cross her.
Oh, man.
Yeah, she also clocked him in the jaw as well as the stomach. Yeah.
That's quite the reach.
Yeah, and she arrests him, leads him out the house. Carmichael is trying to fend off the FBI and give Murphy a moment, not expecting that Murphy is arresting Dresden inside, and cuts him out. And the whole time, Dresden's just nothing, numb. He's been read his rights that he's, anything he says can and will be used against him. And to a degree, maybe that's why he's not talking. But I also think it's just Harry's just so lost in this moment, especially when he needed a friend. And
that's in chapter 13. Are we jumping ahead?
Oh, sorry.
No,
Yeah,
but it does yeah.
Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say it does end with her basically taking everything off of
Yes.
Harry. And, yeah.
No shield bracelet, no gun, no this, no that. Murphy has an advantage of knowing Harry's
Yeah.
things, whereas most people might just write it off as a bracelet. Murphy's like,
Nope, magic.
Yeah, so, she's got that advantage on him. So we've got, and again, wizards can obviously do magic without their stuff. Harry lost his stuff in Stormfront. Harry lost his stuff in the short stories before now. Things gets clattered and thrown and dragged away from him all the time. We know that a wizard doesn't need it. It just helps with the control and the precision and the power. So as much as possible, this is now just a mortal man. But obviously, he does still have just his innate ability. But to as much as possible, she has beaten this man down to essentially nothing.
Yeah, well, what this made me think of is like in detective movies and shows, there's sometimes a scene where like, oh, the bad guy has misled the police, and now the police think that the detective's a suspect and they arrest him. Like in this one, though, it's kind of valid. She wasn't misled. It's like, I think she's has a genuine reason to do all this for him. To him.
You're somehow involved, essentially. Yeah. Well,
With the exception of like cuffing him and then hitting him in the face once he's cuffed. Like,
Well, I mean, he has like 2 feet on her. It's like she's gonna use her vantage.
what's with the unnecessary roughness? Like, was there valid?
It's just Murphy being fucking pissed that she's been lied to and tricked.
Yeah,
and
she's screaming, "You promised!" and doing all this.
Yeah. See, that's why I find it the whole relationship between Murphy and Harry. So like
a lot of emotions running high.
Okay, so they call each other friends, or at least Harry refers to her as a best friend or a friend, and it's like, yeah, my friends don't throw me up against walls. Like, well, unless I ask nice. But no, like honestly, it's interesting that she would just automatically assume rather than be like, okay, Harry, cough up. What's your connection here?
And that is something that comes up later on in the books that Harry mentions. He's like, wow, if this was us 5 years ago, she would have decked me already, but now we can actually talk and have a conversation.
Right.
And it is like, Murphy is essentially like a minor villain.
Shoot first,
in
ask
the books
questions
early
later.
on, yeah.
Yeah.
And she's, there's a certain degree, I think, of everyone being wary of wizards. We've said even before that even like Susan and Murphy, who are a little bit more believing of him, still don't think that he's an actual wizard or magical. They just think whatever he is effective.
Right.
So I think there's a certain degree of Murphy also just being like, who knows? Like, throw a punch, cuff him. Like, I really don't know what else he's got up his sleeve, legitimately, right? And again, I think the punch was a little bit unnecessary. But on the other hand, from Murphy, who still doesn't actually know what he's all about and capable of, and to be fair, I think when you do learn that, it's even more scary.
Yeah.
But I think, yeah, at this beginning stage, when you're, first of all, that angry and that unaware, I can also see from Murphy's point of view where, yeah, it's just like, yeah, hit first, ask questions later. And I also want to say, if you watch true crime, there's a lot of things about, like, cops being allowed to lie in almost every way. There's a few things they can't say or do, but for the most part, cops can lie and say whatever they want in order to get a confession out of you. And a big part of watching, like, interrogations, like, this is just something I like to do, is just watch interrogations on YouTube. And one of the things is, like, they will break a person down.
That explains where you get your
So
conversation
quickly.
starters.
Right? I'm
You
like,
get-
wait, this explains a
you
lot
get
about Jess suddenly.
So much. You watch these videos of just how quickly a policeman will become your best friend, and how, like, it's so common to do the good cop, bad cop, but watching those interrogation videos and watching them do that, like, emotional, psychological breakdown on a person is, like, insane to witness. And I find from this whole moment, like, Murphy was just, like, she knew that Dresden knew Kim. She saw them together. I think that it's also a little bit of that cop background of, like, I will break you and I will get you because I know exactly what to do this. This is my police training. And I want you as most vulnerable as I can possibly get you. And essentially, had things gone right, and had he been carted off to the station, and had he been in an interrogation room within the hour, I think he would have still been a little bit like that zoned out, not okay. Who knows if he would have talked or not. He's a smart guy and knows to just keep your mouth shut.
Right.
But at the same time, I think it would have been her best bet, too. Like, this is his most vulnerable, best chance.
She knows what she can get away with.
Totally. Yeah, there's no witnesses either, so...
Well, maybe roughing him up will put him out of his shock as well, to a certain degree.
Well, to a certain degree, it also just, like, create that line in the sand between them as well.
Mm-hmm. And she's quite young, I think, at this point, too.
She's only got a few years on Harry. It's, like, only 2 or 3 years older than Harry, so she's in and around 27 right now.
Right. Which I could see her just feeling the rage and letting loose.
Yeah, I think, not to say, like, evil woman, uncontrollable, angry woman, but at the same time, it's like, if this is, like, somebody who you've trusted and let in on this police investigation, and essentially, yeah, like, 24 hours ago, she was saying, like, Harry, things are really bad. You and me might both end up in jail for this. Right. I'm gonna lose my license. I need one guy on my team.
So she's got a lot on the line,
and the next day, she's like, you motherfucker, you were, like, the serial killer who kept calling into 911 to give us hot tips. Like, you were right there the whole time, leading me on. So I can definitely see why Murphy would be so angry. It's just that Murphy is allowing her anger to cloud the legitimate police work detective, which, again, also sometimes happens. Mm-hmm. Sometimes a cop decides who the killer is, and that's that. They stop looking at the real evidence and, follow a hunch.
Walks like a duck, talks like a duck, must be a duck.
Right. But anyways.
Must be a killer.
All right. So that brings us to chapter 13.
Mm-hmm. Socially awkward, missing the magic, feeling like there's more to life. Try speed dating. Join us at McAnally's pub every Sunday for Witches, Wizards, and Wannabes night.
Chapter 13. Dresden is escorted in cuffs to a police cruiser shortly to be released by Tera West, the fiancé of MacFinn. Upon escaping, Dresden is shot in the shoulder. However, the two manage to make their escape through the woods.
So yeah, going back to where I cut Jessica off, it's like Carmichael's being a bro right now, just holding off the entire FBI. Just like, I don't know what's happening upstairs, but you can't go up.
And literally just doing the whole, like, I don't know what to tell you, man. My boss said no. Like, this is the FBI. No, so Harry says, I think it's another thing, too, as we were just saying, that Harry's so off balance. He literally says, like, being cuffed and led like I was off balance legitimately. It was hard to hold my balance, and I think that's just one more, like, this man is beaten down and just not here with it, Yeah. Because cuffs do not, he's not cuffed to his ankles right now. His hands are behind his back,
No,
like, he shouldn't be as...
What's a literal and figurative?
Yeah, well, exactly, right? I think it's just a little bit more dig into the knees of he's not okay right now.
No, he really isn't.
Yep.
Well, and it's interesting because a little on here it says, I had promised Murphy that I would keep no secrets from her, and I hadn't. Not really. But I had been stupid.
Omission.
Right? So I think that's one of those things that it suddenly starts to explain sort of the reaction of Murphy, where it's like, well, yeah, your moral compass is a little off there, Harry, so maybe roughing you up is...
Obviously, from the reader's point of view, you can see where he was honest and where he wasn't, and I think as far as Harry's concerned, he was actually about as honest as he could be. The things that he didn't share with Murphy wasn't so much that he was trying to keep it from her or even lying by omission, but that he just didn't know that it was relevant yet. Had he been given a little bit more time, maybe he would have been like, oh, but for Harry, I think he legitimately just, he kicks himself in the butt as he's sitting in the cop car that he's just like, oh, now I get it. He had, had he had just a minute more to think on it, he could have told Murphy, but I think at this point he was just like, well, how was I supposed to know that was going to be relevant, Yeah,
I have in my notes that when he's in the cop car, Harry's like a little kid who just got sent to the principal's office and is now waiting for his mom to pick him up. It's like, oh, I didn't know that would get me in trouble. It's like, oh, now my mom's going to get me, and ugh.
Well, and I think there's some guilt there, too, from just not helping Kim out originally, right? Like, obviously, it's sort of like, oh my God, had I taken a little time as opposed to been so patronizing, this could have.
And I think, even between Harry and Murphy, Murphy's her own person. They are more or less equals in their field. But Kim was his apprentice. He was her mentor. He was supposed to be the one guiding and keeping safe and offering information. So I think there's a little bit more guilt that he didn't do it, you know?
Especially that he goes on this tirade about how he's responsible for her.
Yeah, that he condemns her to death with his arrogance. That's a pretty
Yeah, it's a harsh
strong
line.
admission.
Deep guilt there.
So there's
Lots to think about in the principal's office of the back of a cop car.
There is a moment when Murphy hands him off to Carmichael and them and is about to put him in the cop car when Carmichael turns to Murphy and says, "Are you sure about this, Lieutenant?" And I found that to be a very, like even Carmichael understands the gravity. Like, IA is breathing down your neck for involving a con man who you have been hardline insisting is not a con man since March. It's now October. Do you want to make this official and agree with IA? Because this is going to be a big deal if you do. If you decide that this is this, we're not coming back from this. And so there's a moment, and Murphy, totally hard-faced, not thinking of the big picture, just is mad, is obviously like, book him, fuck him, screw him. Don't like this guy. And Carmichael, obviously, he's a good cop, listens to his boss, does his job. But I think, there was just a moment when even Carmichael, who essentially, extended this olive branch after having always thought Harry was a scam, had it instantly thrown in his face 10, 15 minutes later, and then is like, even still willing to be like, are we doing this?
Well, there's an emotionality there again that with Murphy that it's like he kind of becomes the voice of reason. Like, whoa, hyper-reacting much? Let's reconsider.
And
this.
he is an older cop too. Like he's somewhere in his 40s or so. He's got a wife, he's got children. Like he's a little bit more stable than this brand new unmarried. Sorry, Murph, but there's a certain level when you're just a single, no children, any kind of freedom out there when you can just. No relationship, like any of those things where Murphy she only has a duty to her job right now, she doesn't have to worry about anyone else.
Act first, think later.
Totally, Yeah. Whereas, Carmichael is a little bit more of that, like, let's think about all the consequences, like.
Yeah, Carmichael says, it's like, oh, Dresden, yes, I'm a sucker for the underdog. So he's not saying, oh, he sees Murphy arresting him. He's not immediately anti-Harry. He's like, well, I still want to believe in you. I understand the reasons I had to stick up for you, and I still kind of stand by it, but this is what we're doing now.
Mm-hmm. Again, he's a good boss, or he's a good cop, and he's going to listen to his boss. End of the line. But, yeah, I think it was just a moment there where it's like, oh, now we're on Carmichael's team and not Murphy's. That was quick.
It's like, how did we do that?
So, sad wizard hours in the back of the cop car. Harry sits there feeling sorry for himself, thinking of all the ways he's failed. And to a certain degree, it's totally on him. And to another certain degree, do you think Kim Delaney was just a little bit arrogant? On the one hand, we know that she was an activist. She was in the environmental sort of field. Harry tells us that when we meet Kim in the first chapter. And we know that MacFinn was doing this whole environmentalist thing, so it's safe to say that they knew each other through this, at least, and for who knows how long. And it is later mentioned that they knew each other for about a year or so.
Kim always had a bleeding heart.
Yeah, right? And so it's like...
and now literally.
Dark.
Sorry.
Don't break up with Jim Butcher or... He'll set a werewolf on you. So it's just something like... As much as I will agree that Harry was a bit at fault here, at the same time, like, Kim wasn't this big magical practitioner. Maybe she didn't know what the roof was, so it's hard for her to gauge her own abilities. And maybe, when you have a friend, you have no choice but to go to battle for them and try and help. But at the same time, like, Kim a little bit, like, she's still an adult. She's only, a year or two younger than Harry. Like, she could have decided for herself that this is too big for me. Could have said, hey, Harry, how about you meet me at the house and draw me some circles, But she was very insistent that she did this by herself. And so, and not to victim blame, but also, like, girl, what are you doing? Like...
But also, it's like, if someone says, hey, I'm a loop guru, I need your help, that'd be kind of hard to walk away from.
But again, you
who
could have asked
involve?
for...
Yeah,
like
she
who
goes
would
to the
you
one
involve?
person.
Like, you got a, friend of yours is having some big drama.
Fair enough, fair enough.
Do you tell your boss?
Well,
or do you think you can handle it on your own?
but she did go to her boss for advice.
Yeah.
Well, kind of. She could have just said, "Hey, my friend is a loop guru, and this has happened. Can you help me help him?"
So there's another part of it too that I remember me and Mama, Maggie, we were talking about how Murphy sometimes doesn't understand that Harry can't tell other people's secrets. It's one thing to keep his own secrets from her, but it's another to be like, no, if I tell you the White Council secrets, we all die. Like, it's not that I want to keep this from you. I straight up, like, it's like one of our rules that I don't tell you. Totally, right? So on the one hand, I can see where Kim being like, no, like, I can't go telling everyone I meet that I know a werewolf. But at the same time, you think you could be like, Harry's really chill. He'd be able to do this. Like, can we bring him in? Like,
Of all the people who would understand this problem.
I just think that, like, she could have tried a little bit harder to connect them. Like, talk to MacFinn and be like, can we bring him in? Like, and she didn't try that at all. She's just like, oh, I won't tell anyone your secret. Hey, Harry, what's up with these secrets? It's not important to you. It's not practical. I just want to know the theory. Whatever. Okay, we're good to do this, MacFinn. He totally told me everything I need to know. Let's do this. Like, there's just, like, a little bit of disconnect, I think, from Kim. Just, like, overconfidence or also just, you know, pig-headed to just be like, well, I've got to try. And it's like, well, you know what? That's what happens when you keep secrets.
Well, if nobody kept secrets and nobody lied, most of the books out in existence wouldn't exist.
Well,
Yeah, it makes for terrible reading.
Right? Like, and then everything worked out well.
Chapter 1, and we're done.
We're done. All the people were great. They made
everyone
no
lived
mistakes.
happily ever after.
They told truths always.
Well, I think one more point about that is, Harry's just sitting in the cop car. He's sad. He's thinking. He's connecting all the puzzle pieces. And one of the things that he comes to a conclusion of is like, wait a second, the Loop Guru can only kill on full moons. And a lot of these killings weren't on the full moon, which means there's at least 2 killers or none of, well, I think it's safe to say that Kim Delaney is at least one victim of the Loop Guru. But that's only Kim Delaney that we can actually pin on him. And I think it's been pretty much Harry's decided that the Loop Guru is Harley MacFinn. He's gotten that from Chauncey and from tonight. That's pretty enshrined already. Like, we can say that for a fact. But other than that, we don't know who are the other ones, how many are there. We've got the gangbangers. We've got the little old lady. We've got 3 bums, an old man, the businessman and his driver. That all happened a month ago. And not all of them on the full moon.
Yeah.
And then we've got, most recently we had Spike and now Kim. So, and only one we can definitively say was MacFinn. So Harry's, he's sitting in the car and he's like looking out into the woods and he feels some eyes on him and he's like, there's someone else out there.
The amber eyes appear.
Yeah, someone's watching him. Not the cops, though. No one's
Not the
supervising him for some reason.
Specifically says none of the cops are looking at him.
And later on, it's like whoever rescues him doesn't open the door even. The door's just left open.
Well, so he sees Amber Eye suddenly staring at him, and then all of a sudden, Tera West is standing outside the door. Sorry, just the woman from earlier, MacFinn's fiancé, who introduces herself right then as Tera West. And she opens the police car and is like, let's go. And
I'd be buying you more trouble. I don't want to go. That's what he says.
Yeah, but okay, let's be honest. I wouldn't go either. Like in sitting there looking at this situation, I'm like, if somebody came to me that could have possibly been the killer and said, "Hey, come with me, I'll save you," I'm like, no, I think my bets are better hedged with the cops on this one.
Well, and I think for the most part, Harry would, in this case, prefer to put his head down and go to the police station and be honest and be like, I don't know what the fuck is up, right? But she says, there's going to be more killings and you're the only one who can stop it. And that's what convinces him out of the car. Because, same thing with Victor Sells. Like, he didn't want to send the cops there because he's like, it'll just be a bloodbath. Like, they don't know what to do. And I think same with these werewolves. Harry would prefer to clear his name with the cops and not make a deeper shithole for himself. Because it's one thing to be falsely accused of being complicit with the murders and arrested, and it's another to actively be on the run from when you're arrested. That is definitely, like, you can't deny you did that. Like, that is for sure a crime.
There's no innocence here.
Right? So I think,
Admission of guilt right there.
Yeah.
But this is Harry's, problem. He's like, I am the only one who can stop this killing. Clearly, Kim tried and failed. And here's another woman saying, you're the only one who can stop this. And I think, he's kind of between a rock and a hard place. It's like, you know what? Shit sucks.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is the start of the Terminator theme that the next few chapters have. You basically come with me if you want to live.
Right? Run or die. Yeah. Okay.
Right.
And it's like, how about a hug? Like, he's having a moment.
As they run, he says, let alone all the injuries he has, that he feels out of shape running. Is this where he starts doing those mile runs?
So it's a
later books?
little bit after this, but
Okay.
it's after a few books that he's like, oh my God, every goddamn year I have to go on a marathon.
Yeah.
So then he starts to train himself up. He's like, okay, clearly this is becoming a theme of my life.
It's like as a kid, I always thought I wanted to be Doctor Who's
Companion?
companion, but they always run every damn episode.
So
That is
much
way
running.
too much track and field for me, thanks.
If I got a spaceship, I shouldn't have to be
I
running.
have to run. I got a time machine. Don't make me run.
Yeah, how about I meet you here in 10 minutes? Like, I'm going to get back in the ship and transport 10 feet
I'll
back.
pay
right.
you TARDIS money. You'll leave in it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I shouldn't have to run. I have all the technology available to me.
Totally,
But
yeah.
what if you have to outrun a T-Rex?
See, if I was a wizard, I'd just find a way to like float there or something. You know, like
Essex Thalis?
there's got to be a way.
Oh.
Oh,
No one in this room watches Critical Role.
Like,
I
wait-
need Mom back.
wait a sec. There's actually a word for this.
Essex Thalis, he's a character in Critical Role. He floats everywhere.
Fabulous.
She could just be making it up. I mean,
True. How would any of you know?
Nerd alert.
Until all the commentary
Me?
keeps coming in. The lies.
There is no Essex. Essentially, yeah, like the cops, right as he gets away and gets into the tree line, that's when the cops are like, hey, stop. And
we didn't consider this.
the FBI is on his tail right quick, despite the fact that they've all just like busted their way into the building. They're right on his heels and they're like, buddy, we will get you. And they start pretty much shooting right off the
Yeah,
bat.
shoot to kill right away.
Right
I
away,
started
yeah.
blasting.
Totally, and that's another thing is like,
He's in cuffs, man. Like another.
Due process is not involved here.
but again, if you really think that this guy has a lot to say, you would want to question him. And I understand that when you've got someone who's a threat or not, then sometimes it's not in the best interest and just kill on sight before they can kill anyone else. But in this situation, he's in cuffs. Like, aim for his feet, not like his head. Like, wouldn't you want to talk to him later?
Well, but
Right.
if you thought he was a murderer,
I
making
know,
a run
but
for it
still.
and about to kill others, like,
One less loose end.
you know, like,
But anyways, so him and
I'm
Tera,
not justifying cop actions here, but you know,
no, we're not doing that.
never know.
But they're running through the woods. They're blah, blah, blah. And essentially hit the property line, hit a fence. And Tera, motherfucker,
Right.
boosts him over the wall.
Yeet.
And, like, by this point, Harry's been shot. He's fallen to the ground. His shoulder is bleeding. He's doozy from just his disassociation. Now he's got all this pain in his shoulder.
Upset tummy.
And yeah, and she essentially tosses him over a wall. Blinding hot pain, he gives a cry, gives out their location, and it's too late for Tera to get over the wall. So he does a little bit of like hemocraft and like has all his blood turn to fog.
Yeah, this is incredible to me.
Yeah. Like, and we never see that again.
No.
For the rest of the series. And we had that moment in Stormfront 2 when he did like the whole like Mickey Mouse Fantasia thing when he like made the broom sweep and
Right.
he even launched himself up in the air. He did his own flying wizard act in Stormfront, right? And he never does it again. And I find it very funny that I think earlier on in the books, let's just say that, you know, not that Jim Butcher didn't have Harry's spells sorted, but that it was more just Harry was wasting his talents early on. Like, he wasn't
Yeah.
ever saving anything. He's like, everything right now. Whereas in later books, he's like, no, it'll probably be 7 days before I sleep again. But earlier on, he's like, let's do this big cool magic right now.
Yeah, vaporizing water content seems like such a basic spell to use in many situations. And most things
Fair
are made
enough.
to have water content
Yeah.
in them.
Control water. Yeah.
Unless he's multiplying water somehow. Because I don't think he would be bleeding enough to create an entire like smoke screen. Whatever he does.
Well, how much water do you need to create how much fog? I'm not sure what the conversion is there.
Right.
Well, how much wind do you need to float? See, going back to my earlier question, like, why do you not just float instead of run?
And this oppresses even Tera.
Yeah.
Says this is the first thing that Tera seems like phased by.
Wizard. Don't
Oh
wear it
wow.
out.
You can make water boil? Oh my god.
Fair enough, but it's still weird to me. I mean, blood is... It's just darker than water.
That's why it was dense, thick fog.
So, essentially,
Why is this
you know...
fog so red?
Hair...
Why is it chunky?
It's made with my blood.
So yeah, Tera,
Tastes like
blood,
steak.
sweat, and tears. But yeah, Tera manages to get over the fence, run off, and Harry passes out at that point. He's done. But yeah, I mean, Harry's on the run now. Officially.
On the lamb.
Yeah.
On the lamb.
And
It's
I
on
think
the
this
shuffle,
is
maybe not the run.
a first indication that Tera might be something other than just a simple werewolf, because she does have that incredible strength while she's not changed.
Totally.
I don't know, though. I don't have a nipple reading to go off of, though. So it's hard to say.
Not enough heaving bosom discussion on Tera yet.
Well, it's lucky when they don't wear bras. Helps with his understanding of woman so much better.
Heaving bosoms. We all love them. What can I say?
We thought it was mind reading, but
It's
So yes.
this is gonna make it on the B reels, right? This is
All
This
going
is our
in.
prime
the
content.
Patreon bonus content right here when we talk about nipple sizes.
oh no, this is just staying in the episode. Are you kidding?
Yeah.
If we remove it now, we have to remove all the nipple content. That's 40
no,
minutes.
No,
Then we don't have a podcast.
save the nip.
Free.
Like, wait, I can think
No,
of some
we're
good
enslaving the
merchandise
nip
for that. Save the nip.
On a necklace.
New line on Patreon.
Do you want to buy us a pint or a nip?
Bonus tassels.
It'll quench
Subscribe
you.
to our Patreon or our OnlyFans. McAnally's.
Add Fever Studio. No.
This concludes our episode 5.6 on the Lamb. Thank you for listening. You can find us online at freeflowrambling.com and McAnally's.ca. There we have links to our other podcasts, social media, and other fun tidbits. Please subscribe if you like what you're hearing, and please consider supporting us through Patreon to keep the magic alive and to see more content. We are Free Flow Rambling, conjure headed.